Welcome to the latest installment of Project Crewman, and because I forgot to film an intro scene up until this point, I'm going to keep this simple. This is what the engine bay looks like now, but let's go back to see how we got from where we left off to this point right here. Okay, it is time for another big moment in the reassembly of the Crewman, and that is going to be joining the engine to the transmission. This is going to be a bit of a ballet because all I've got is me and my engine hoist, so I'm going to have to get a bit creative here. I've reinstalled the engine lift plate on this thing so I can get it off of the engine stand. Then I'm going to have to cart it over here, slide it in front of the transmission, bolt the two together. Then I'm going to have to set the engine down on a pair of jack stands on the engine mounts so I can reposition my hook on the rearmost position of this lift plate. This easily weighs 100 pounds more than a manual transmission. I don't have a transmission jack. This is going to be the most convenient way to install this in the car, I figure, is to slide the entire thing in there as one unit, and this lift plate should be strong enough to accomplish that. So it's, like I said, going to take some time here, but I'm going to start wheeling these two around, bolting things together, and seeing where things land. There we go. All right, that's already tipped forward. That's a good thing for balancing everything, I suppose, but it means initially I'm going to have to move the hook forward. So let's put this back on here for a second, lower it down. All right. Well, now it's pitched back. There's nothing I can do about that though. I got to pick one or the other. So I guess I'd rather have that angle and then lift it up to align the dowels. So, okay, well, now I got to remember what size wrenches it was to get these bolts out. Problem is I don't have any bolts long enough to get this dowel, to get on this dowel, because see how far it's sticking out? It should be going in there a little bit further, but I've tried to pound it in before and I can't get it in anymore, and I'm afraid about cracking the side of the block off by trying to force it any further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open this up a little bit with my Christmas tree tool. The last slot on it fits right in there. So if I just open it up to the last opening, it's not going to go all the way in, it's going to go about halfway in, but that should be enough to get it started, and then the rest of this hole can be an alignment hole. So I'm going to give this a go. There. So just enough to get it going. So we'll slide this back in. There we go. Now we're closer. There. Now I can use my starter bolt to get this going in. Okay, now I can see that the gap on the bottom's larger than the gap on the top. So back this off a little bit and see if one of my main bolts can get there now. No, it can't. And then there's no bolt hole here. So that's just the top one. So, all right, so what I'll do is I'll lift it up. I'll get this top one aligned, because right now it's not aligned. It's, the top part's sitting too low. Okay, so actually probably need to go out with that a little bit more. I probably can only have one thread on that right now. So now that that's aligned, I can lower it back down. Okay, that tips the engine forward. Yeah, this starter bolt really needs to be in the bottom, not the top, because that'll pull it more straight. This is fun. And now there's no room for the box wrench. Time for a socket. Okay, that dowel is definitely coming through now. Excellent. That's what we need. So I should probably tighten this up a little more. Okay. This side is pretty much fully in. So because that side is still farther away, I'm not going to keep working on this. I'll just get it started so I can't bend out back out the other way. Okay, so it's going to just be a process of wiggling this side back and forth with these two bolts to keep this dowel moving. What's weird is this block doesn't have a hole up here, another hole up here on it for the transmission. It's only got, this hole is not used, these two are. There might be one more down here that gets used. That's interesting. I'm surprised there's not a casting hole here in the block for that. Especially because this is a truck block and they want it to be stronger. Home stretch. So how many bolts is that holding the transmission? 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it's 6. Oh, and then there's the oil pan bolts. So there are going to be 8. Well, 8's enough. And I'm just going to get everything snug right now, because I'm going to come back in here with a little bit of Loctite blue to hold these on. I've never put Loctite on these bolts before, but I figure it can't hurt. So, okay, so that's all of those. There's still the 2 on the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and get all these other ones done first with the Loctite and torque them down. Then I'll do these 2 that go into the oil pan. Okay, got the first 2 bolts Loctited. Gonna go ahead and torque them up. These get 37. Something I've come to realize in the process of doing this is that GM is very generic in torque specs. Torque specs are really determined by the diameter of the bolt itself. So like, these are M12s, I believe, or maybe they're M10s. I think maybe they're M10s. But M10s traditionally seem to get always 37 foot-pounds of torque. M8s traditionally get 18 pounds of torque. M6s traditionally get 9 pounds of torque. So it's always pretty much the same numbers. So I guess they just assume, okay, it's this diameter of bolt, this is how much torque is going to be applied with to hold things, and that's going to be enough. So, you know, in a way that's nice if you can be mindful of that. You don't always have to reference the service manual to find torque specs, which can be convenient. So I'll get these other 2 done, get the other side done, get these bottom ones in, and we're going to have a mated together engine and transmission. Okay, that is all 8 bolts. These 2 are now joined. There are still a couple more tightening up things I have to do. So the first thing I got to do is I've got to do the torque converter to flywheel bolts. And then once that's done, I have to put the transmission cooling lines on. They actually go under the transmission and they bolt to the side of the block. So they're a fixture of the whole thing, so they can't move around independent of the engine and the transmission. So I'm gonna get started on that, but I think the inspection hole for putting the torque converter bolts on is over here. I may have to take the starter back out. Actually, no, I might be able to get to them right here. So I will go ahead and get started on that. Okay, taking the starter off is the easiest way to access these torque converter bolts. Now on a 6L80 flywheel, there are 3 holes for torque converter bolts. Even though I'm using a 6L90 converter, which has 6 pucks for bolts, so you can use 6 bolts on a 6L90, but everyone's told me that unless you're making over 1,000 wheel horse, you don't need 6 bolts on the converter. Plenty of people run 6L90s with 3 bolts, which is what I'm gonna do, so that's where they go. So I got the first one in and I've spun the motor around to the second position. Now I'm going to take that bolt back out, now that I know it lines up, put some red Loctite on it, and tighten it to 47 foot-pounds. Okay, one more thing to show you here. I got the trans cooler lines on. Now, these are OE trans cooler lines from a 2012 SS Camaro. So they bolt right there, go underneath the transmission, which is what I want, because where I'm going to end up running trans cooler lines is on the passenger side. But I do have an obstacle to overcome, because Camaros have a rear sump oil pan, so they bring the lines down here low along the oil pan, and then they bring them up, which is the opposite of what I need on this thing with a front sump oil pan. So I'm going to have to find a way to either rebend these lines so they go up and around by the starter so they get out of the way, or I'm going to have to cut them there and make custom lines. I really don't want to do that, but if I have to, I have to. So that's a problem for another day. Now I just got to get this thing set down on jack stands so I can reposition it with the engine hoist. Okay, I've got the engine hoist repositioned on the farthest rearward position now. So I'm gonna try lifting all this up and see what kind of balance I'm gonna end up having with this whole setup. So engine's coming up. When does the trans leave the ground? It's already off. Okay, so in that position, what does that look like? Damn, that's pretty much straight on. Well, that's nice to know that I can carry it around perfectly straight, but I'm gonna want it tipped to go in, so I guess I'm gonna try it on the fourth hole to see how far just that tips. So we'll bring her back down slow. This should get me a much better angle. Hopefully the perfect angle. All right. Wow, that's a lot of angle. Maybe too much angle. Is the trans off? Okay, what does that look like? Actually, that should slide in pretty nicely. All right, so the fourth hole is going to be the right hole for what I'm doing. So now I got to slide this whole thing rearward so the trans will sit down again. Okay, that is off. All right, well, that's enough work in the garage for one day. I'm gonna go ahead and fold this thing back up, clean up in here, and next up's gonna be putting all this in there, which is gonna be the most exciting thing so far. Okay, there's one more thing I had to do to the engine to get it ready to install in the car. And it's actually not even related to the engine, it's related to transmission cooling. I had to make transmission cooling lines. You can kind of see them dangling right there, right by the water pump. That is where they're gonna come out and then go underneath the radiator to get into my trans cooler once it arrives. But let me show you what I had to do to rig this up so it would work and not interfere with anything. So as you can see here, I'm still using those factory hard lines that I got for the SS Camaro, and they're going underneath the transmission still, but after that, everything changes. I cut them off after they come underneath the transmission. Then I put some -8 fittings on them, and then they get adapted down to -6 right here, and then just 90-degree elbows to bring them up. And then I just tried to use as many factory fasteners as I could to attach them. So there's a couple of points here on the starter. I'm using one of those to hold the lines. And then there's another point up here on these VE starters that exist that I'm using as well. So they're not touching anything. They're not touching the bell housing. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but the bottom hose is barely not touching, which is exactly what I wanted. And then this right here is actually the factory brace to hold them, and then the factory location for those Camaro SS lines. I just took it and I rebent it 90 degrees, so instead of the lines being horizontal going through this thing, they're vertical going through this thing. And then they just come up here, and once the engine's in the car, I'll run them underneath the radiator into my trans cooler, and the cooling for the transmission will then be complete. Okay, the big day is here. Chris is back. You remember he helped me put the firewall in last time. Now he's going to help me put the drivetrain in. So hopefully we can get this done in about an hour's time, but we're going to walk it over and get it in position. If I have to get more angle, we're going to jack the back up to change the angle, and hopefully we won't have to do too much of that. There you go. Okay, I'll move it from here. Here? I think so. Yep. All right, we got that far. All right. A little more. Okay. Wheels don't want to cooperate here. No, they're fighting. There. Okay. Now we can just go that way a little bit. All right. Oh. Yeah, now she's. Okay, so. Well, let's just go down and see how much this is going to interfere. If I absolutely have to, I'll take the radiator out. If we, well, you have to push a lot. And then that would also, yeah, that would also bring the, okay. Yeah, I think I gotta take the radiator out. I think
It's probably the safe way to go.
It's gonna get in our way too much.
Yeah.
All right. So now this should just lift straight up and out. Here, you want to hold this side? So it's
Okay.
pushing over here. Okay, there it is. All right, so that one's out. I gotta hold this forward as I go up. Something. Hang on, you're higher than I am.
Oh.
Something's hanging up. Oh, you're out of the channel too. There we go. There we go. All right, now. Do me a favor. Come. No, we don't want to go forward no more. Come hold the engine.
Okay.
Come hold it back here.
Yep.
And then I'll lower it.
Looking good back here.
Okay. Stop right there. You hold it at that. You keep that slight downward angle on it. Because that raises up the oil pan, and then I can get more out of this. Okay, that is as far as we'll go.
You want to throw a rag on the back here? It would maybe
rag on
metal against metal. I mean,
Yeah, I got tons of
chipping out.
I got tons of rags here. Okay. Okay. Come on, boys.
Yeah.
Once we get a little further back, then I can go down more on this thing.
Okay. I'm actually hitting right now.
Okay, we'll stop there. I'm gonna lower it some.
Yep.
Okay, stop there.
I'm kind of losing the pressure to push down.
I gotta push it your way too, because it's off center.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Okay, I can definitely lower it more now.
Okay.
Hang on, I gotta push it here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Okay, there it goes. Alright. Let's see what we got. Alright, that's going under there, alright. I can definitely go down here again. Alright.
It's going good.
Okay, we got room there. So, alright, I'll push here. Feels like something's stopped.
Yeah, it's hitting and I can't push down.
You can't push
Yep.
down. There's room to go down. Okay, so let's do this. I'll go underneath, and then I'll manipulate it down here because I get more leverage.
Okay, yep.
And then you can push her forward. All right, hang on. I gotta get under there. Okay, I got her. So go ahead and push her forward some.
Okay.
Good. All right. All right. Is the oil pan clear of the condenser yet?
It'd be nice if we could go another inch.
All right. I can do that. All right. All right. Okay. I'm gonna get back out.
Okay. Yeah, and it's the transmission's still gonna want to tilt up. I think it's going good.
Yeah. Actually, it's working its way back right
Yeah,
now. Okay.
yeah.
Now I gotta worry about the cylinder heads hitting the firewall. We're good there. Oh, hang on. Let's go back a little bit.
Oh,
We're pinching an engine. We're pinching a harness. Oh. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. Okay. That's just gonna be in the way for now.
okay.
I'm gonna let that droop. Now we go back a little bit because we're on the condenser now. A little bit. There we go. The condenser. Okay. So let me find a way to hold the condenser forward. Okay, zip tie right there. I'll fix it. There. Now keep that forward.
All right.
All right. Now I'm gonna see if the transmission's still resting against the firewall here. It is a little, yeah, it is a little bit, So we gotta come down just a bit more. There, lines there is still pretty good. Actually, the more we do that,
the better it is.
Sweeping underneath.
The pan is past the steering rack. So,
Excellent.
Yep, it's going to drop right down. Ooh.
Oh, hang on. That was probably banging against the tunnel under here.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's not painted the same color. So, yeah, we can definitely go back from here. And we don't have to go back much more.
No. All right.
All right, we're banging on the firewall. I can hear it. I can see from here we need to go your way a few inches. The motor's sitting to the driver's side right now. Here, I'll try to pull it under here.
Well, that's about all we can go because we're hitting the manifold on the brace here.
Okay.
Yeah, just looking at the motor mount.
Yeah, this is pretty in line over here.
I would think as it tilts down.
Oh, the ABS. Yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
See, now at some point, I'm gonna have to put the jack under the trans, and I'm gonna have to lift the back of it up to straighten this out. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. We are, you know what, we still gotta go. See, the oil pan, the pan is not past the rack yet. The trans is, but the oil pan is not past the rack yet.
Right, yeah.
So I can only go down just a hair more. This is where I'm gonna have to start lifting the trans up, and we're gonna have to do a dance.
Yep.
So raise the trans, lower the engine, raise the trans.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's probably as high as I can go there right now. I don't know if that's gonna allow. Okay, my trans lines are starting to hit on the steering rack, but if we can go back. What's in the way? Those cooling lines are in the way. The engine definitely has to come down. Okay, so I can actually I can't really bring it down because of those trans lines on the rack, unless we can if we can bring the engine to you and keep the trans over there, we can get those cooling lines past the rack, then we can start to lower it. So let's see if we can, I know the ABS is gonna get in the way at some point. Okay. You know what, there was weight on the cradle because the whole front suspension just went up. Okay, now the back of the trans is floating.
Okay.
And that gave me, an inch I can play with to drop that down now.
Yeah.
Better stop there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're close from passing it now, though. You'll have a better look from underneath.
I think if I lift the trans up a little more,
Yep.
we're gonna get there.
Yep.
Yeah, the pan barely clears the rack right now. So
yeah.
We can go. Okay, so yeah, these always get in the way. You know what I should have done is I should have just flipped them up before we started, but that's all right. There. So there's really nothing else back there to hit at the moment. This will give.
You want to go back, right?
Yep. And it feels okay. It feels like it moves some. Okay. I don't know if it can go anymore, but I might have gotten a little more clearance for the pan. Oh, I did. Yeah. Okay. We can go back. We can go back a little bit, and it actually should rotate as I lower it.
Yeah, it's going good.
Yeah, we're real close to the engine mounts.
Yep.
We're really close. This mount is damn near lined up.
So is mine.
Okay.
Yep, it's coming through.
Mine's in.
Yep, so is mine.
All right, I gotta stop. This little shield has got a little hole it's gotta live in. Mine fell out of its hole. Okay, there we go. All right. So that's in. All right, I'll keep going.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
We're definitely on it now.
Yeah, my mount won't go in.
Oh.
It's just pushing, the stud won't go in. That means I probably have to now raise the trans again to get the angle.
Oh yeah.
Well, as you saw, the drivetrain is now back in the car. Now I have to go through and reattach all those little things that go along with an engine bay. All the wiring, the plumbing in the front, put the intake manifold back on, do all the vacuum hoses that need to attach to the intake manifold, all those little things, along with the cross member. Still got to figure that out. What I'm going to start with is getting the power steering line reattached, because it bolts to the bottom of the oil pan, and then that will help me determine how I'm going to route the new transmission cooling lines and attach those in the engine bay. So hopefully tonight I'll get both of the power steering lines reattached, and I might even be able to bleed the whole system and get that part of this done right away. All right, one little progress update to show you here. I've got the power steering all reassembled, and I've even got the system bled out. So the way I did it is I took all these old rubber bushings I had, and I put them on the end of my drill and just put that up against the pulley for the pump, and I just spun it a lot. Spun it, got it up to, oh, I'd say pretty close to idle speed. Did that a couple times, turned the rack back and forth a couple of times, watched the level go down and up and down and up. And I'd say it's fairly bled out now, so that'll be done before I even crank the engine for the first time. So next thing's going to be getting all the trans cooler stuff routed. Okay, another big progress update here. The transmission cooling lines are done. So the completion of that is here. They come underneath the AC compressor, and then they go under the power steering line. I put this battery wire braiding on them just so they wouldn't eat into any rubber lines here. They're just kind of attached to this one power steering line to locate them. And then there is a gap right here underneath the lower radiator hose entry. They come under through the gap right here. You can see that. And then the wire braiding ends. And then we rotate in here. Now this is a Durali transmission cooler. I prefer proper fittings, so they make this one with -6s on the end of it. So how this works is, this is the line that comes from the top of the transmission. That's the feed line. You want to feed through the bottom of your cooler and work your way up to the top. I guess this is best for making sure air bubbles stay out of the system by pushing fluid to the top rather than letting it flow to the bottom. And then this is going to be the return side going back to the transmission. So this is all done now. I got these brackets all bent up. These came with the kit. I put these goofy angles in them because I had to attach it to the hood upper brace here. I wanted this to be as close to the AC condenser as possible, but not so close that it could ever bump into it someday. So there's a decent gap there, you can see, but I can get my whole hand in there, so it's not too close. And then on the bottom here, it's just attached right here where nothing else is going to attach. I painted these black. It's bracket, tried to keep everything as black as possible. This should be hidden behind the bumper. You shouldn't see that. So from just viewing inside the grill, once the bumper's on, you won't even see this. And this should provide more than enough cooling for that 6L80. I'm actually worried it's a little too much cooling, but I guess I'll find that out when I finally get the thing fired up. But this part is all done. Okay, this is going to be the last update for this video. Just want to touch on some more things that are done in the engine bay here. I've got 8 brand new AC Delco coils on here and brand new coil brackets. I had a set of plug wires left over from the GTO that I'm going to repurpose on this thing. I've got the AC lines connected. Most of the cooling lines are done. All of the vacuum lines on the back of the intake are done. And of course, the intake, throttle body, fuel injectors, those are all now installed. And you might have even seen poking out behind the ABS module a trans dipstick. I managed to figure out how to fit one in there out of a Silverado, and I'll be able to check my dipstick level and fill the transmission easily. One more thing I did, I got another package from Australia last week. It had brand new rear shocks for the Crewman and a replacement parking brake cable. One of the ones that came with the rear axle had a frayed end on it, and I was able to get a really nice one to replace that. So that is going to wrap this episode up. Obviously, a lot of great progress has happened. This thing is starting to actually look like a car, and I must admit I'm getting a little bit anxious about it. The next episode is going to have a lot of things going on. Transmission cross members got to get made, drive shaft, fuel pump, more wiring inside, possibly start on the interior, and hopefully it won't be too long before you see another episode. But thank you for watching this episode of Josh's Car Corner and Project Crewman. I will see you in the next one.